Welcome. I am Giovanni Tokarski.
I am Giulio Quarta.
You're listening to Platform Coops Now, the podcast, a bi-weekly podcast on the platform cooperativism movement and how to realize your cooperative project and much more.
How do we, the workers of the world, can get democratically organized at a global scale? How do we get beyond platform capitalism? How can we build a better future of care, joy and abundance for the many and not for the few?
Enjoy, subscribe, and don't forget to share your thoughts and experience. Welcome to Platform Coops Now, the podcast. Welcome to the new episode of Platform Coops Now, the podcast. This is the second episode. Apologies for the short delay we had compared to the previous weeks, but from now on, we'll try to keep it bi-weekly. So before we start, I would like to shortly mention that PCN 3, Platform Coops Now 3, the new edition of the course is officially open for registration, and you can find the link in bio of this podcast and on our social media channels. So on today's episode, we wanted to talk about Eva, which is one of the platform co-ops that have had the most success as of recent. And to do so, we brought two members of Eva. On one side, Dardan Isufi, who's the COO of Eva, and on the other side, to have a bit of a more user experience, we have Nima Aliahmad, who's a driver member of Eva, and he can give us insight of what it is like to actually use the app and be a driver on the platform. So if you guys can quickly introduce yourself and give us some perspective, feel free.
Well, I'll start. So thank you very much for having us for this second episode of this quite awesome podcast. First of all, thank you very much for promoting platform cooperativism. I think it's truly important to incentivize young entrepreneurs and future entrepreneurs about the cooperative organization. So yeah, I'm Dardan. It's been 3 years. I'm working full time within the Eva ecosystem. And yeah, that's about it. I'm based right now in Montreal, Canada.
And hi, my name is Nima, so thank you for having me as well. I did not think I would be a delivery driver or rider. I teach full time. I do computer support at a school, and I fell in love with bikes maybe about 10 years ago. And I did a lot of bike riding, and maybe just 2-3 years ago, I got into deliveries as something I could do on the side for fun. And I joined quite a few apps, and one of them, Eva, I joined them, and here I am. So.
And maybe to mention about your passion for bike, that you traveled from Montreal, and if I'm correct, to California.
So to Arizona. So yeah, part of the serious bike riding is my biggest trip is I left Montreal on a 3-month trip. And I did kind of like across Canada. I went to Edmonton, and then I went down the Great Divide, which is through the mountains, and that route ends at Mexico for the Great Divide. Like it continues, but I stopped at Arizona. So I did a 3-month trip from Montreal to Arizona, passing by Edmonton, and I camped most of the way. Yeah.
No, this is just for the people listening to this podcast. Like, usually people take the plane to do such trip, and it takes hours in plane to get there. So,
it took me 3 months.
Yeah, that's
you're telling us that Eva is serving all the continent to Nima. You can order from New York, and Nima will come.
If you're willing to pay.
So let's proceed. We want you to speak big and large about Eva.coop. I'm glad you called it ecosystem, because with this new trend of platform co-ops and with digital economy in general, we are starting to speak about ecosystem more and more. So, Eva.coop is interesting for so many point of view, and it's also being studied by researchers. We read your story, and it's a long, interesting, and convoluted story. You have your apps is running on blockchain. You have 50,000 driver. So you are planning to expand much more than in Quebec. So please, Dardan, if you want to tell us the history of Eva, the motivation that make you run it, how is it going? Where do you want to go?
Well, yeah, of course. Well, Eva for the people, it's a rideshare app. It's a rideshare app that you can download on Google Play Store and Apple Store. And it enables anyone to travel from point A to point C with a little stop to point B. It's urban ride sharing with no surge pricing, and it's all based on blockchain, which allows us to have total data privacy infrastructure that is, well maintained. Alongside the rideshare aspect of it, Eva is also a delivery app. So we're providing commission-free, limitless deliveries to any retailer or restaurant by plugging ourselves into their transactional website. Eva, as a cooperative movement, gathers over 50,000 rider members, or nearly 2,000 driver members. I don't have the exact count here because every week it's increasing. So it's a quite strong movement. We're up and running in 3 different cities, including Montreal, which is the second largest city in Canada, with great partnerships with several local actors in mobility, including the Montreal's airport. So first thing first is, if you're in Canada and you're listening to this podcast, well, download the Eva app. You never know when it could be useful for you to travel. It's instant. You can see your driver arriving. The pricing is always predetermined, and it's always you always get kind of a nice driver riding you. During the pandemic, Eva had to be innovative, and we started this instant delivery, which was truly popular among the Montreal market and Quebec City market and the other cities we're in. Over 700 retailers and restaurants jumped in. Among them, the best restaurants, some of the biggest chains in the country just joined our movement and now are being delivered by us. And by doing so, it allowed our movement to diversify. So right now, before we only had ride sharing. Right now we have ride sharing, which is still a good, very nice product, good service, good experience, overall. But we also have instant delivery. And by doing so, we were able to recruit different, types of driver members, including, bikers. So, those doing delivery with bike. And it's, so far, I'd say it's a pretty cool experience to have. Eva's mission at the end of the day is to provide, sustainable and good mobility services to its members. Members being both the riders and the drivers. And our goal overall is to franchise our model into other cities. So for us to be able to run eventually in Toronto, eventually in other Canadian cities, and who knows, maybe one day in Europe.
Well, thank you, Dardan, for your answer, and we'll get back to it shortly in more detail. But going back to Nima, what you said that you didn't plan on becoming a delivery driver, and that your passion is teaching, your passion is driving the bike. And also I remember when you emailed us, you said that you joined Eva in March. So I imagine this had to do with the pandemic. So how did the pandemic impact you, and more in general, what has led you to becoming a delivery driver, and what has been your experience so far with those delivery driving apps?
Yeah, so I see myself like more as a cyclist than a delivery person. I think I started delivering even before the pandemic, but it was just like maybe a couple of hours here and there. And I think I did it just because I had some free time and I saw other people riding their bikes and delivering. And this was before the pandemic, maybe 2018 that I started, or 19. And then when the pandemic hit, I realized that I have like now all this free time because I can't socialize as much. I can't see my friends. And I realized it could be pretty good money too if I just do many hours of it. So that's how I started. And then, so I joined a couple of apps like, Uber and DoorDash. And now, I think it was my friend who ordered from Check Please once and told me about it. I'm like, hey, that's a pretty, cool that they're not taking as big of a percentage from the restaurants. And I'm like, how do I become a driver for them? So like I contacted Check Please, and then I realized that they, work with Eva. So I contacted Eva, and then their form online was like, for mostly car driving. So like I called them, and eventually they're like, no, yeah, you can register as a cyclist. We've dealt with them. So that's how I joined Eva. And it's only been March of this year that I've been with them. Just a couple of months. Yeah.
So if I understand correctly, in your case, it wasn't, dictated by a need to make enough money, but it was rather,
No,
I have the time, so let's make
exactly.
the best out of it. But that's not
Yeah.
to say that I imagine also in Canada, there is a lot of people that do it out of necessity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've encountered, different drivers. Some of them, they're like, oh, I can go to school, or I can, do delivery work. Like some people have been let go of their jobs and they do doing delivery work. But in my case, it's more that I had all this free time, that I didn't usually have. And, I enjoy biking. So that's what I decided
Makes
to do.
sense. Hard to criticize you there.
Maybe there's two things that one question and one thing I'd like to add is, it's funny because the way Nima heard about Eva is through one of our integration, because as I mentioned, for our delivery services, we're integrating ourselves to restaurants directly or to local platforms, to local marketplaces that group restaurants together. And, so he heard of one of these marketplaces and then heard about Eva because we're delivering most of the local marketplaces. But one question, Nima, so when you first started, in delivery, just because you like biking, were you already all equipped, because
Yeah.
I guess you cannot just start delivery with only your bike, and so you need to have like, helmet, and the delivery bag. So you already had like all the equipment beforehand?
So like, yes, like when I joined Eva, I had it, but when I first started delivering, I don't think I knew what I was doing. I had like a regular school backpack, and, I go to restaurants, like, the first 10 deliveries I did, I think I got turned down by one because I didn't have an insulated bag. And at some point I had a pizza, so I was like carrying it in my hand while biking. So that's how it started. Eventually I clued in that this is maybe not the way to do it.
Gotcha.
But when I joined Eva, I had like all the equipment. Anytime I get turned down, like it's only been maybe 2 or 3 times. And, once it was because there's a place that sells 2 feet, like 24-inch pizzas. And I'm like, I need to have a bag that could carry that. So I went and got that. So I have with me maybe like 4 or 5 bags so I can do big orders, no problem.
For Eva, it was quite a challenge because, when we started delivering, we just applied the same logic as for rideshare. So ridesharing is done by drivers with cars. So we just apply the same for deliveries. But now what we're working on is to improve our app to add a biking feature so that deliveries dispatched to the bikers, so the driver members being, delivering with bike. Well, for these deliveries to be not far away deliveries, to be deliveries of a small size that they can fit in the bag, because it adds a lot of value for us as a co-op to have bikers for many reasons. But one of them is, unlike cars, bikes don't pollute as much. I mean, it has no emission, on a per delivery basis. So for us, it's truly important as we're looking to be carbon neutral by 2030. So it's one of our goals. And by achieving this goal, we'll just, increase the recruitment of bikers as yes, it's much more, eco-friendly. But the challenge we have on the other end is that, not all bikers like to bike during the winter. So for us, it's always to balance supply and demand and make sure that we don't recruit too much of bikers so that we don't have enough during the winter time and so on. So, but yeah, it's a great challenge that we have adding on top of what Nima said.
But on that, well, if you, let's say like all your drivers become riders, right? So you have everyone riding a bike. If you were to go to a city like New York, is it feasible to do all the deliveries by bike, or would there be like a trade-off in terms of the time you're spending like while waiting for your order?
I don't know. It's more a question for Nima. Would you be willing to do an hour bike delivery?
Well, I think of it in terms of like, how do I provide a good service for the customer? If the customer is ordering from, I don't know, 2 hours away by bike, like, I think that's kind of on the customer that like, hey, you're this far, you're ordering from this, so you should have an expectation that it should take pretty long for your order to arrive. If the expectation is that it's being done by car, then it should be faster for a long order. But one thing I want to say about like the time it takes to get a delivery done by bike, like I've been working at this school and my time to get to school has been the most consistent out of like everyone here. Like I don't get affected by traffic. I don't get affected by the weather that much. So on snowstorm days, like I still can predict when I'm going to get to work. Like I know it's going to take longer, but I know I'm going to get here on time. Like
it adds more predictability, but the challenge we have to your question, Giovanni, is that, one of the feature that we have as a delivery provider that we're limitless. So we don't have any limit radius. So we have some deliveries, for instance, we had 3 hours deliveries, because from Montreal to another city, we had deliveries to Ottawa, which is the Canadian capital. So for us, this is something that differentiates us in the market, because DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats have all these limit radius, 4 kilometers, 5 kilometers. Unlike us, like it's unlimited. So because of this very core aspect of our delivery service, we can't only rely on bikers. And the other point is, there are some brave and courageous bikers, doing deliveries during the winter time, and props to them. But, it's not the majority. A lot of also bikers do it with electric, bikes. And this on the winter time, I mean, here winter is pretty harsh. Like it's not like the winter in, Napoli or other cities. It's something like, yeah, you get like almost a meter of snow and, it's minus 20, minus 25. So it's crazy.
Yeah.
You short? Oh, sorry. Go on.
I wanted to ask to Dardan because we were thinking about balancing supply and demand, and we were thinking a lot about the differences between the capitalist platform like Uber and Glovo and so on, and the cooperative alternatives that face so many challenges. And in respect to this, I mean, how to allocate work, how to match drivers and riders with people who buy. How do you organize it at both a level of algorithms and social organization? I mean, because it's very interesting if you are cooperative also in the way in which you manage the core of the app, that is delivery, matching supply and demand, and balancing it dynamically. How does it work?
Well, I mean, we're in two business models. So there's the rideshare part and there's the delivery part. Delivery, I'd say it's more predictable because usually people eat at the same time, right? People don't order, food at like 3 a.m. Well, a very small portion of the people do. So, for us, it's cool because it adds predictability. So we can tell in advance the members that we recruit that, hey, most of the deliveries are on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday evening between 5 p.m. to maybe 8 or 9 p.m. So, and we know the key areas because restaurants are always at the same place. It's rare that you see restaurants moving apart in the city. Where it gets tricky, it's in the ride-share part of it. Because ride-sharing is 24 hours, 7 days a week. And people use ride-sharing when they have no other option. Because usually people walk. They take their own car. It's cheaper to take the public transit, so the bus, the subway, whatever, the tramway. And when there's these electric bikes in the city during the summer, this is what they use. So ride-sharing is used only as the last alternative because it is more expensive. Although we're cheaper than Uber, we don't have surge pricing. Our price is always predetermined. It's still expensive. So it's hard for us to predetermine in advance or long enough when will the ride occur. For instance, when there's a festival, we'll have an increase of rides. When there's a protest, we'll have a decrease in rides. So this is where it gets tricky. And we have different kinds of incentives within the app. So one of them is we have drivers who get a universal basic income of $15 an hour. So we guarantee them a minimum floor, ensuring that, there are drivers in specific location, in specific schedules. We have drivers who get an hourly wage, we try to have $18 an hour. And also we do, promotions. So sometimes whenever we feel there's going to be a shortage of drivers, we do something like, do 10 deliveries and get $20. Do, 20 deliveries and get, $50. And so on. So it incentivizes and motivates drivers to be online. Whenever, let's say there's a religious holiday, well, this is what we do. Because religious holidays, we know in advance that, part of the drivers won't be there because it's the Christian, Christmas and whatever. So, so for deliveries, it's pretty predictable. For ride sharing, it's less. I'd be curious to hear Nima on, his experience on, riding with us, doing deliveries with the bike and, going out when it's the best time to go out. So have you experienced, long waiting times and how have you dealt with,
if I can just quickly add to that question on top of this, more broadly, what has been your experience with Eva compared to other platforms in terms of the pay itself, the overall experience, but also is there, because I was reading about it and, the claim was that there is the people from Eva seem closer to you than compared to other apps. Is it the case for you? How have
there's
it been?
There's a lot of questions up in the air right now. One of them, no problem. One of them was how it is in terms of getting jobs and when to go out and work. My experience is I go out when I have free time. Sometimes I do deliveries on the way to work. Sometimes I do them on the way home. Sometimes I do them on the weekends. Generally I find that, I can't only stick to one app. I need to have many of them open. Otherwise, I can go hours without a job when I'm free. I don't do this full time. I do it full-time hours, but not as a main job. So, I can imagine some people who are waking up at maybe 8 a.m. hitting the road, hoping to get work and maybe are not getting work. So I would my perspective is you gotta be, available to do work on any platform, from a driver's perspective or a rider's perspective. But yeah, evenings are the best. Surprisingly for me was sometimes I'd be on the road during lunchtime, and that's when sometimes you get orders for a big corporate order for a lunch meeting or something, and then sometimes it's good tips for that. But yeah, lunchtime, those are predictable times to go out, lunch and evening, especially Friday and Saturday. But the other questions about maybe the social aspect here. So with Uber, I feel like my other drivers that I see were kind of like competitors. It's like, hey, I could have got that job, and I'm waiting for a job while someone's getting a delivery. But when I see other Eva drivers, I'm like kind of like happy, like, hey, I recognize that guy. Like, there's more camaraderie. And it's like when we would communicate over like communication app on the phone, there'd be like a group, and then you kind of get to know some personalities. And whereas with the other apps, you don't get that. I guess there could be other like groups that are created that I don't know about that I didn't try to join, but yeah. There are other questions out there, but I think it's not.
Okay, this is the worker side, but
yeah.
From a business point of view, how can you do it and to be competitive against the Uber of the Lyft by paying workers so much, by being so cooperative and sustainable, because you have a lot of costs in this, and Uber or other companies are like millions of investment ahead and can also work for years by burning money without the urgent need to be sustainable. So, Dardan, how is it possible that you are a top in this context?
Well, there isn't, 21 answers. It's pretty simple. It's really profitable or not. What we're looking to achieve is break even. It's our big goal. Unlike Uber, we're not pouring money to do marketing. So, that's the thing, spending that we're not investing on. Our best marketing, consists of the drivers. Driver members are by far the best marketing tool that the co-op has. Imagine, we have driver members, doing both Uber and Eva. And whenever they have a Uber customer at the back, well, they convert a Uber customer into an Eva rider member. So by doing so, we get a free rider member that will now use the Eva app, and it costs us literally $0. The reason is that the drivers, well, most of the driver members know that Eva is a co-op, and at the end of the day, it is a socially owned company, and that they're getting better fares, better tips out of the Eva rides, Eva deliveries. So by far, the members form the best marketing. So we're not pouring hundreds of thousands of dollars in marketing. Same for the restaurants. The reason why we were able to get so many restaurants is because we're commission free, and therefore we literally did no promotion at all, and we got 700 restaurants, and we have no sales department. The restaurants are coming at us. We're not coming at them. So, and because our service is also, and I mean, Nima can testify, but like, we're trying to give the best service as possible. Whenever the customers in there, like, we're doing everything possible to find the customer, to make sure that the order, arrives to the customer and so on. And to be honest, even despite the pandemic, we were able to grow over 30% on a monthly base, doing thousands of deliveries and rides on a per month basis. And, this is, to be honest, tremendous. We've seen a lot of companies, badly affected, negatively affected by the COVID, pandemic. And on our case, it was the other way around. We took this as an opportunity to diversify our company, our co-op, and make sure that we can change more lives. And as Nina mentioned, the whole point of Eva is to run in a sharing economy perspective, so that the people, so both riders and drivers, they just participate in the platform whenever they can, whenever they want. And this is the beauty of it. So we have drivers, for instance, some of them are doing it full time. Some of them are part-time accountant, and then they're doing Eva on the side. Some of them we have students. So, they have their weekends free. So they take, their car and they just, start riding people around because they want to make some extra money. Some people do it also for fun. So we have like older people just, they get all the social welfare, but they're doing Eva just to speak with others and spend some good time. So that's the whole point. We want to enable, our app to all these needs. And, one key aspect of our service to achieve, break even and financial sustainability is, really to diversify our sources of rides and deliveries. So the more we have restaurants, the more we have, marketplace partners, the more more we have rider members, well, the better it is at the end of the day. So of course, yeah, I mean, the whole ecosystem of Eva with the franchise and such is the goal is so that we can raise funding. Well, we already raise funding, but like to raise more substantial funding so that we're capable of a better, market the app, the service, and get better restaurants, better retailers, more rider members, and so on. So it's so it's not an easy thing, but we're not looking to do as Uber, so like run negatively for like 10 years and hope for the best eventually. So we're already looking for break-even profitability and making sure that the co-op is financially healthy.
Cool. I was thinking also to your platform strategy, and because to our listeners we want to send a message that launching a platform Coops is different than launching a normal Coops. It's not just like a digital Coops, but you have it's much more difficult and you have very different logics. So what would be your advice for cooperator up there, or an innovator or a social innovator and so on, that wants to get into this new platform economics trend? What was your experience in this term? What is because you mentioned like not expanding in marketing, but making restaurants come in, and it's like pull and push, different strategies. What is your take on that?
Well, building, I mean, truly speaking, the classic cooperative model isn't well suited to the digital economy, in the sense that in order for any platform to arrive, it requires substantial funding that you can build supply and demand. Think, for instance, of Facebook, or think for Tinder. So in order for Tinder to work, you need to have lovers or people seeking for love, or whatever they're looking for. And you need to market to these people, incentivize, give promotions, and so on. And this is very capital intensive. So I don't think so. I mean, to anyone listening and interested in launching a platform co-op, go for it, because I do think it's the future. I do think the cooperative model is a part of the solution in the growth of inequalities around the world. I think it will make the whole humanity, the whole world, a better place to live in, because instead of having economies for a few, we'll have economies for the group, for the people. And I think we have great examples, Mondragon, Desjardins, great co-ops, that have emerged, in the last, centuries and decades, that are, good examples of successful cooperatives. But for platform co-ops, I think, big co-ops and existing co-ops have a role to play in order to ensure that everything is done, well, that there's enough funding for future platform co-ops. Because funding is key in any platform, in any digital platform. So for us, it was a huge challenge. But now that we're in, honestly, it's people sometimes fear that a co-op will be complex to manage and the governance will be a pain, but it's actually not. If you think of your governance ahead of time, and then you build something strong, like strong pillars, you won't have troubles in the future. The key is to build it in a democratic way and to ensure always a cohesive and transparent communication between the admin, the board, the members, and making sure that everybody is all aligned. But yeah, it's not an easy task to build a platform co-op, because, I'm looking at Airbnb. Airbnb is an awesome co-op, and they're competing against a multi-billion company called Airbnb. So for them to build this whole cycle of supply and demand will be so expensive, right? So they'll need to be creative in order to get funds within their proper classic cooperative model. And we have the same challenge. We're competing a multi-billion valued company, which, got the market within less than a decade, by, being a very aggressive player, So of course we'll still have like challenges ahead of us, especially in terms of funding.
And so just to connect quickly, well, I have a couple of questions, but I'll start on Nima's side because Dardan, you mentioned that the co-op is run democratically. And Nima, in your case, let's say you don't like something with Eva. Is it something you can have an impact on? What would be the procedure for you to make a change?
Yeah, when I joined, I was surprised that whenever, for example, as a cyclist, I don't have access. I need to know the like address of where I'm going before I even accept the job. And I was surprised that like I could just say it in the chat and be like, hey, where is this order going? And someone from the office would just tell me. I was like, oh, this is like a feature that doesn't exist, but they actually were there to help me out. So whereas with other apps, like if it's not in the app, like, you can't actually get anything out of them. So I found that I could voice my opinion, I could communicate. Not that something's going to happen right away. Like there are changes that are planned that take time.
Of course.
So I just know that I can voice my opinion, and if I voice it in a constructive way, it's respected. And whereas I can't really call Uber and be like, hey, this is what I'd like to see.
When did you join the co-op of Chile?
When did I join the co-op of Eva? Eva in March, not long ago.
Okay, so that's fairly new. I feel because I see your name going by, so I thought you were an old member with us. But so our two General Assembly meetings on a per year basis, but the COVID kind of hit us big time. So our last General Assembly meeting was in December 2020. Our next one is planned for this summer. Although the goal of General Assembly is, yes, to go through all the procedures, budget, and all the votings and so on, but it's also to meet with the members and just exchange. The kind of the unofficial goal of it is to have like this big gathering, and it's better when it's in person. So now that the vaccination campaign and there's less cases of COVID, we're hoping to have in an open park General Assembly meeting.
And well, I wanted, again, I like going back to previous points of discussion because that's actually for both of you. Because Nima, you talked about the feeling of community within Eva, right? So knowing and recognizing the drivers and riders. And on the other side, Dardan, you said that your real marketing tool is this community, right? So my question for Nima is, well, this community, is it only local in Montreal and Quebec, or is it like actually starting to expand in other cities? And for Dardan, well, if you were to expand to other cities where this community might not be that present, what would be would you have to make some compromises in terms of marketing, or would you have to make maybe even like some legal compromises, because maybe if you change country, the same legal frameworks might not be available for you. So yeah, a bit like on Dardan's side, like can you do some compromises in that sense, or what's the plan with future expansions?
So my community feeling is mainly with the other drivers through the communications that we have over the groups on the phone. But on a bigger sense, with the type of customers often we get are people who are more maybe socially conscious. They're like, sometimes I come there with my DoorDash bag. They're like, oh, I didn't want DoorDash, but I'm like, oh, it's just a free bag that I got. So they were happy that it was with Eva. So I find like, and they're happy when they see me on a bike too. So I like, there's a bigger connection, not just because I'm a cyclist, but also because I'm with Eva, with the customers. So you feel like you're part of something bigger than if you're with Uber and you can be like really replaceable and you're just So that's the community feeling. With a reach of outside of Montreal, I don't like, other than that feeling of being big, doing something bigger than, but not, yeah.
So I guess, for Dardan, the lack of this community right now in cities where Eva is not present could be an issue for future expansion, I would assume.
Well, the way we work, so I guess it's a bit normal that members from Montreal aren't aware of what's happening in the same Quebec City. Mm-hmm. But Quebec City, we have the exact same communication means with the drivers as in Montreal. So we have all these groups and so on, the social media and so on. So it's targeted to Quebec City because the needs in Quebec City are different from the needs in Montreal. And the demographics, the market, everything is different. Even the urban challenges that a driver can face are different. I mean, Montreal is always under construction, while in Quebec City, you can, there's never drivers complaining that they didn't get paid well enough because they waited on traffic, because there's almost no traffic. So, what we're doing before launching in a new city, the first thing we do is we recruit the drivers, the members, and we build these groups so that we create a community bond and so that drivers can stay connected. It's so important for us. Sometimes it gets tricky because when you're like 1,000 of drivers all chatting at the same time, it gets like a mess. But we're always trying to get new members to know each other. Some members, I was aware that one of them was a photograph and the other wanted a family shoe, so we just called the other drivers. Some of them own a gas station, so like they're, hey, go to my gas station and I'll give you like a half price on the car wash and stuff like this. So drivers are helping each other. One of them is an accountant, so they do the accounting for the other. So that's what we're looking to build, the sense of community. I mean, there's a driver who's now building these little fresheners for free, in the car, and he's giving this out. So he brought the fresheners at the office, and like he's promoting his fresheners on the Facebook group or something like that. So for us, it's always cool to have members just interacting with each other and helping each other. That's cool. I mean, that's and this is what we're looking to do. Just to give a quick anecdote. So in Montreal, there is a specific police for the taxi, okay? And this specific police also rules over Uber and Eva, because there's only 2 rideshare apps. And one of the drivers got cut for a regular control, just, asking for papers and making sure that the Eva drivers all, confirm on paper. And another driver saw this, so he stopped his car. He called the office saying, hey, somebody, another Eva driver just got arrested. And like at the office, the kind of reaction was like, well, what else can we do? Like, you want me to help him out? You want me to speak with the police? So like he was ready, to literally help an unknown other driver member because he was arrested. So
the idea would be really to tailor make the model for each city rather than copy pasting it like Uber is doing, for example. It's the same model in every city. So rather, exactly, just adapt it to the community.
So for instance, in Montreal, we mostly communicate in English, well, half French, half English, but in Quebec City, it's only in French. So every city is different. So it's, and we treat, the members differently because they have different needs and so on.
Pretty good question, Giovanni. And,
thank you. Thank you very much.
Because what we want to differentiate between platform capitalism is also in the modalities of scaling. Someone calls it federated scaling, in the sense that you don't grow in a vertical way, but adapt to communities and distribute to wealth. And so the paper we read about Eva, it was Everything Old is New Again.
Yes.
And it mentioned this new paradigm of this concept of shared service platforms, like Eva, that is basically a service, in this case software, that is shared by many cooperatives. And we are very happy to have you here because it's one of the most successful shared services platform out there right now. We said that it's very difficult to run, but we also think that this is the future because it's just logic to share resources to create good software. and to make it cooperatively owned between all their stakeholders. So to promote this diffusion of shared service platform, Eva, what does want to do in respect to both the cooperative ecosystem as a whole? I mean, other cooperatives, other other sectors, and also social franchising to expansion to other cities and countries. What is the road ahead?
Well, I'd say, to me or to us, the most valuable principle of the 7 platform cooperatives, the 7 cooperative values, sorry. So, to us, the most important cooperative value is intercooperation for many reasons. The fact that Eva can, run today is because we had bigger co-ops, that help us, fund ourselves. Major co-ops in Canada, they just, granted us money, loaned us money, and they just helped us to kickstart our movement. So because of that, we're grateful to the cooperative movement. And we, as a growing, startup co-op, we're looking to help other co-ops. How we do so? So first, by franchising our technology to other potential future rideshare and delivery co-ops. This is our goals, to franchise the app in a social manner. And the other way to help other co-ops is to directly, help them whenever they have issues. So, for instance, we have symbolic partnerships with Smart D Co-op, with Up and Go, with Fairbnb that we know very well, and we're helping each other because sometimes we have questions on governance and they have an answer, or they experience something, and sometimes it's the other way around. So, almost on a bi-weekly basis, we send our internal bylaws to a startup co-ops that is looking to have deeper insight on how we work and how we're structured and how a multi-stakeholders co-op works. So, yeah, we're willing to, fully give more insights, data, advice. We're not experts, but we're up and running, so we have ground experience, and we've tried stuff. We've tried the universal basic income, the salary wage for the gig economy. We're within the sharing economy ecosystem. So we're always willing to help out. And if ever, the people listening have, any need or questions in starting their co-op, feel free to reach just by an email to contact@eva.coop, and we'll reply to you within 1 business day.
Well, yeah, just to testify to what you said, the reason this podcast happened to an extent is because you got in contact with us as soon as we created a channel of contact. So that's very true, and I think it's very important because platform co-ops and even cooperatives in general are quite small and powerless on their own, and the very important thing is to create this sense of community, this co-op of co-ops, basically, this network. And so I'm very thankful to the availability of you guys and how you presented yourself to us, and I imagine any other co-ops, because that's really helpful and that's really important. And I'll just quickly promote again the course, which you can now join officially. You can subscribe, and we'll leave the link in bio. And so if you guys have any concluding remarks about anything that can come to your mind, from biking to teaching to the future of platform cooperatives, please really feel free to share. And thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you very much for having us. Thank you very much, for thinking of Eva as a cool platform co-op to have. We're always glad to share more about our rideshare and delivery revolution. For the people listening, I invite you to download the Eva app on the Apple Store and Google Play Store. Also, we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and all these social media. Maybe not TikTok, but we'll get there.
We'll put everything in bio.
Thank you very much. And also thank you, Nima, for taking your time in between two classes.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights
and thank you for having me. My general view on co-ops is like you can cut the part that isn't actually like doing the work, like let's say the big office at the top, and then we are the office, everyone is the member, then you share the wealth, and everyone's richer for it. So I'm going to get out there and deliver right after this. Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take good care. Stay safe.